Today we're going to talk about some things with airplanes. Airplanes like this one. So that jets and winds and things.
Welcome back. Part 2, Air Force Stories by Lieutenant Colonel Nutnfancy, U.S. Air Force, retired, and man does it feel good. I love being retired. Having a great time with a series of videos. You might sense that. So many great things to impart, lessons learned. Hopefully it helps you in your military job or even in your civilian job. I think a lot of these things will play out time and time again because humans are humans and we all are faced with all kinds of challenges which test us. Left off talking about weighing risk and managing risk, and I don't mean to have that sound too institutional to military guys who are like, oh, risk management, that's so stupid. But I really believe that, and I gave you guys what I think is a pretty cool story on the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle and how that Army major actually turned that whole event around. There's a lot of parallels in the flying world too, the U.S. Air Force. I told you how I had practiced big crosswind landings in the simulator, that I actually leaned forward and looked for opportunities to challenge me so I'd be more prepared. I think that's smart. And to a lot of you guys, maybe some who have not served in the military, you would say, well, heck yeah, that makes total sense. Why would you not do that? Believe it or not, there's a lot of people that won't do that because they're afraid of looking dumb. More than anything. They're just like, well, I'm not going to put myself in in the simulator, put myself in a position where I would look foolish. You got to get past your ego, guys. You just really got to. That's part of being a quiet professional. That you've got to say, you know what, I'm not really great at this certain event. I'm not great at this combat tactic, this flying event. I'm not good at refueling. Maybe it's formation flying, which, by the way, I had challenges with. I mean, formation flying in T-38s, T-37s, I had to work at. I ended up getting good at it. I would never say that in formation flying I was an outstanding formation pilot. I was probably good. I got goods on my rides. Not excellence, but goods. A couple I got excellence on, but it was challenging. Okay, so everybody has their challenges. Maybe it's low-level flying. Maybe it's crosswind landings. Swallow your ego, man, and put yourself in a position to take advantage of good training. And what you need to learn to do as a military professional is realize that's BS training. That's good training. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to discern what's nonsense and what's awesome. I'll talk more about that later on. That's your job as a military professional. And the really good stuff, you better grasp onto it and just suck it in. Because it just may save your bacon. It may save everybody that is under your command if you're an officer. Now, if you're one of these guys who is scared to train, or you misidentified this really awesome training thing as something nonsense, you didn't prepare. And by the way, I flew with guys like that. Then you're an idiot. Sorry, you're an idiot. I'm known for speaking my mind, guys. It's just the way it is. Because you're putting lives at risk because you're scared. You're scared to swallow your ego and look stupid because you can't, get better. Be a quiet, professional. On one of the things I did as a young aircraft commander, I came back from those channel runs, and then immediately I was back in the fray. I was like, raising my hand. I want to go again. I had a young child at home, Tactical Doodle. He's a little baby. But at the same time, I'm managing and I'm weighing everything out. It's like, well, these short trips that I can go on. European Tanker Task Force was one of them. It's TTF. ETTF is about 45 days long. You deploy over to England, and man, was that awesome. That's when I lived in England for a long time. And then you stage from England and go fly to all these countries. Germany, Norway, Crete, Greece, Australia. Awesome. Doing all kinds of missions. Cargo missions, refueling missions, and it was extremely challenging because the weather is extremely challenging. I'll tell you some combat stories here in a little bit. But that was challenging enough. So I was kind of known for that, had a reputation, because to me, I'm this. I'm a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. And to me, being a pilot is being a warrior, being an expert at your weapon system. My weapon system at the time was a KC-135. At times it was a T-38, later a C-12 King Air. You better be expert at it. Know everything about it within reason. You don't have to build the plane, but know the systems. And know how to handle it and chill out and be a quiet professional. We're taking off out of Mildenhall one evening when I was over there at ETTF. We did a thing called the Engine Failure Takeoff Continued. And that one grew out of a mishap that a KC-135 had in the late 1980s at Beale Air Force Base with an instructor pilot and a young co-pilot transitioning in a KC-135A, this exact plane right here. Transitioning means they were actually doing practice touch and goes at Beale Air Force Base. They were out of Castle Air Force Base, which, by the way, is where I went to KC-135 training. Loved Castle. It was shut down in the early 90s. Sad, sad, sad. They did a touch and go, and the student pilot, he was graduated pilot training. He's going into follow-on aircraft training, KC-135. He wasn't doing good. In fact, he was doing really bad. And he landed so hard in that A model, he drug his motors. Boom! I think he drugged like number 3 and 4. Number 3 immediately caught on fire. The instructor pilot took the aircraft, initiated a go-around on the runway. They take off. 3's burning, 4's burning, gears hanging, tower's screaming at this guy. You're on fire, you're on fire, you're on fire, you're going to crash. This guy, in the moment, I talked to guys that knew this guy, and he was a very squared-away pilot. He was not an idiot. The instructor pilot took the plane. He pulled up close. That's basically where you turn the plane over, basically 180 degrees to come around and make another landing on fire, and he forgot one very, very important thing. He didn't raise his gear, and he overbanked the aircraft in a limited thrust situation and an asymmetrical thrust situation because he had 1 and 2 burning, if I remember the motors right, and he pulled up to like 60 degrees of bank and he stalled the plane at about 1,200 feet. You're dead. Dead. You have no altitude to recover a big plane like that. You need 5,000 feet to recover. Blew up. Everybody on board killed. The student pilot, the IP, there's a navigator on board, boom operator on board, all dead. Out of that very sad and tragic mishap came a procedure called Engine Failure Takeoff Continued. We're talking about training. Training, right? That's what we're talking about. Quiet professional, weighing risk, managing it. Engine Failure Takeoff Continued was a practiced maneuver where you practice losing an engine. You practice the asymmetrics. And what asymmetrics is, you have 4 motors hanging on those wings. If you lose an inboard motor, and you have asymmetric thrust happening, you can actually have some serious problems. It can be a bad thing if you don't manage it correctly. You have to turn into the good engine, apply some rudder on your low hand, that's just my technique, and fly it out. If you screw it up, you're dead. Engine failure, takeoff continued. So back to Mildenhall. I'm deploying. We're going over to Crete, I think, Suda Bay, on a mission, and we have a takeoff weight of like 315,000 pounds. Here comes a story when I was scared, being honest with you guys. I briefed it up to the hilt. By that time, I'm an instructor pilot. You know, the expert in the KC-135. I tell my crew, hey guys, by the way, we're going to do a practice F-talk on this runway. Engine failure, takeoff continued. I'm going to come up to like the minimum altitude, 200 feet, and I'm going to pull an engine back, and then I'm going to talk my way through and instruct the scenario and tell you how I would handle it. And then the guy that's flying with me can learn from it. It's actually pretty good. Pretty good. I will tell you this, though, it scared the living crap out of me. Here's why. One, we were at maximum takeoff weight for that runway, and then also the engines were at TRT, takeoff rated thrust, which is basically maximum power, max as they can put out. So we push up the motors, they're like screaming. By the way, that CFM 56 when it's cranking, just listen to the airliners, they're flying them too. You can hear them, they're like, ah, really cool sounding. Just an aside. We crank that power, release brakes, we go rolling down the runway. They're at maximum thrust. And so I forgot what engine I pulled. I could look in my logbook, tell you. It's probably an outboard engine I pulled. And then the asymmetric thrust started. Okay, but the thing is, I'd never done an F-talk, and you KC-135 guys learned from this, at that gross weight. At a heavy, heavy gross weight. Plane started to roll over. Awesome, no problem. I aileron into the heavy side, and immediately I could tell the way the aircraft was responding is that if I got this wrong, if I just even barely touched the wrong rudder, we would flip upside down so quickly on that takeoff, we would have no chance for recovery. We're all dead. The plane talks to you. You can feel it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is wallowing. So I'm like, oh, okay, be very careful. I'm like, aileron into the heavy wing. I'm talking with the good motors on it, a little bit of rudder. Bottom line is I flew out it. The demo went great, but I was scared because I'd never seen the plane like that. Plus the engines are cranking, so that asymmetric thrust, if I'm not talking jargon with you guys, is really wanting to roll the plane over. I had to put in a lot of aileron, which increased the drag. I needed more engines. It was a lot. It was a very serious thing. But I still maintain it was a good thing to do. Some guys would say, oh, you shouldn't do that. Well, I think you should. And going back to the Bradley thing, because what if you have an F-talk, a loss of motor at a really heavy weight? Is that the first time in the heat of the night, the dark of night, and it's raining out, that you lose a motor, you're at 322 gross on takeoff? Is that really what you want? The first time you've ever seen it? How about you train for it? Yeah, I was training in real life, but I was confident in my abilities. It turned out fine. It did give me a bit of a lesson there. Be very, very careful. Throughout my Air Force career, again, I've seen people that don't do that. This is my take, my perception of things. One night at my guard unit, we're doing a cell mission. This is like multiple aircraft in the cell. In other words, a formation flight. Sometimes we do 6 ships. 6 KC-135s, dudes. Wow, that's a big cell formation. It's a lot of work. It is a challenge to do it safely, especially when you're in IMC conditions. That is instrument meteorological conditions. You can't see, it's cloudy. It's tough. We have station keeping equipment, basically TCAS nowadays. And the lead, you know, she's like, well, the weather started rolling in and we briefed it. She's like, yeah, I don't know if we should go out. And I'm like, why? She's like, well, it's supposed to be, 1,000 overcast, quarter-mile visibility. I'm like, so? Let's go. I was number 2 ship at that night. It was a night sortie. This is only about 4 or 5 years ago. She goes, I'm canceling it. I'm like, you're what? Why are you canceling it? She's like, well, it's a training flight. We don't really need training. I'm like, I beg to differ. We do need the training. We have a lot of young pilots. Had a new co-pilot with me. We very much need the training. And he would love to get confidence in this mission. That's an important word I want you to hear. Because when I matured in the weapons system, I was an aircraft commander, then an instructor pilot. My job is to make the other dude confident. I want to give him confidence in that KC-135 because when he's faced with a Travis 25, 30 knot crosswind, when he's faced with enemy fire, when he's faced with horrible weather conditions and he's doubting himself, how about he goes back and draws on that experience? Is it dangerous? Yeah, it's dangerous. Dangerous things again. Here we go. There's a lot of things that are dangerous, but how about you train to the level and be good at it? And as an instructor pilot, that's my job. I'm going to give you things out of my personal toolkit that can give you confidence. I'm going to say, watch for this, watch for that, watch for that. And then I'm going to watch his performance, and I'm going to praise him when he gets it right. Dude, good job. Awesome. Good job. Build his confidence. That's my job. Build his confidence. Get him to where he needs to be. And that cell lead that night, she goes, no, we're canceling. Oh, dude, we had a big fight. I'll tell you what, I was pissed. I was like, why are you canceling this? Well, because, it's just not worth the risk. I was like, here we go again. You guys already know what I'm going to say. It is worth the risk. We have to train these people. So what if it's tough? So what if it's challenging? Oh, I don't want to fight anymore. Hey guys, can you quit shooting at us because we need a break? Did that happen in the Battle of the Bulge? Nope. That's why I told you I'm more General Patton than I am General Westmoreland. I'm kind of a lean forward dude. I was known for that. Not leaning so far forward you're going to do something stupid, but I'm saying be a quiet professional, train for it. I think also being part of a quiet professional is being loyal to your dudes, your buddies, whether you're a leader, a commander, being loyal to those people. Being loyal to your squadron mates. And here comes a funny story. This is funny. Okay, so you heard I said the word she. So yeah, she's a female pilot. Did that have anything to do with it? I don't know. She's actually a very square. She's an instructor too, and she's actually very good. She's very good. Probably one of the best female pilots in the KC-135 I've ever seen. It was just, we differed on that call that night. No big deal. That happens. I was flying with another female pilot. You guys are just going to roll when you hear this story. Talking about being loyal to your squadron mates. I'm an instructor pilot. She's coming up for upgrade, and she just had a baby. Oh, gosh, this is hilarious. I'm going to laugh just thinking about it. So she is nursing this baby. She's like, she has a, we'll call her Susan. That's not really her name. So Susan is with me. She's in the right, no, she's in the left seat. I'm in the right seat as an instructor pilot. And we go refuel, no problem. That all went great. She was a medium skill pilot. She wasn't awesome, but she was okay. We get back in the pattern. We're transitioning. We're doing practice ILSs, TACAN procedures, and all that. And it's kind of a cloudy night, about 3,000 foot overcast. This is up at Fairchild. And she checks off. She's like, I go to the bathroom. She's like, okay, cool. And I just got to tell you guys this, okay? I got to be honest with you. Her flight suit was stretched clear out here with her breasts because she's a nursing mother. I don't know how else to tell you that. I just got to tell you that because it's very germane to the subject that I'm going to talk about. So, I'm doing my business. I'm like, what? Yeah, I was a little distracted. But I was keeping focused. So she comes back from the bathroom. She goes, I have a problem. We're in the pattern. We just done a touch and go. And, I'm hand flying. She goes, I have a problem. I can't finish the rest of the sortie tonight. I'm like, why? She's like, my breast pump batteries just died. What? She goes, yeah, my breast pump batteries died and I cannot get the milk out. I'm sorry, dudes, it's just physiological. I'm like, really? Don't you guys have a procedure for that? Is there a way you can express it out? Oh my gosh. I was laughing then, it wasn't funny for her though, because she's in pain. I guess it's a big deal. You can't get the milk out. It's just like, it's surging. She's nursing. She has a baby. So, circle of life, dudes. And so I'm like, okay, how do I handle this? So I'm in charge of the flight. I'm instructor pilot. We cancel training. At that time, if you cancel training at Fairchild, it's a big deal. Why'd you cancel training? Wings stand up ensues, and they question the squadron. You lost training. I don't really care about that. Screw those guys. What I'm looking at it as a standpoint of I get a chance to help Susan out. Her name wasn't Susan. It was actually Mary. I'll just call her. I won't tell you her last name. So I was like, I can help Mary out. And maybe give her some stuff out of my toolkit to be an aircraft commander that can serve her. That's my job. I want to make her ready. And so it wasn't often that she and I would get scheduled together, and that's where I was coming from. I was like, so it'd be great if we could finish the sortie, finish it. So I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to land the aircraft. We're going to do a full stop taxi back in front of base operations in the KC-135. Boom's there, nav's there, and they're like, what the crap? And do you have an AC adapter for your breast pump? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep the motors running. You're going to go down the ladder, you're going to run in, and you're going to pump the titties out. True story. And I was like, and I'll be waiting for you. We'll finish the ride. Sorry, I don't mean to get crude for you, but I'm retired. I can speak however I want now, right? Oh my gosh, this is so funny. She runs into base ops. We're sitting there, and command post comes on. They're like, dudes, what are you guys doing? It's like, we're doing a full stop taxi back for training. I'm covering for Mary. There is no way I'm going to come on the radio and go, yeah, Mary's boobs are engorged with milk and her breast pump battery died. I'm not going to embarrass her like that. There is no way. Oh no, I got an itch in my nose. And so she goes in, and it works. She comes back, she's a little bit more deflated. Awesome. Carrying her breast milk in her bottles. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. She climbs and she's a warrior. She's like, I'm ready to go now. Let's go finish this. And we did. We finished the ride and it went great. She did a good job, gave her a good ride up. She became a very good aircraft commander. Mary did. So good on her. And I'll tell you what, I sat on that story my whole time in the 97th ARS. That was my squadron in Fairchild, 97th Air Refueling Squadron. I never told a soul about it because I didn't want Mary to be embarrassed. And dudes, if that would have gotten out, oh, she would have never lived it out. Never lived it out. It's just, I don't know. It just was embarrassing. What a funny story. I just love it. And after I left, and then when I separated, because I got out of active duty from Fairchild and went directly to the Utah Air National Guard, she came up to me and she hugged me. She's like, thank you so much for never telling me about that story. I'm like, no problem. That's funny. I think she left the military afterwards. I think she did min time, and she was a mom after that. She was a good girl. Here's another story. Quiet professional. Still talking about that because there's a lot to talk about. Part of being a quiet professional, just like in that instance with Mary and myself, is knowing what your role is in the military. Sometimes you put on the hat of being a student. Sometimes you put on the hat of being an instructor pilot. Okay, sometimes you put on the hat of being a fighter pilot. Formation lead. Lead them into combat. You need to know what your role is in life. And sometimes when you're in that learning role, you need to, again, strip yourself of ego so you can take advantage of somebody who is truly there to help you. This is a lesson that someone taught me as, again, I was an instructor pilot. And he's a great friend of mine. To this day, he's a great friend of mine. His name's Neil. And Neil had some times in the Air Force that he was taken off flying status. He had some things going on in the family. And so there was a period of time in his Air Force career that he did not fly, an extended period of time. And so here we came up to another European Tanker Task Force, and Neil was on that flight, and I was assigned to him to get him requalled coming back. And the weird thing was he was an officer senior to me. He was been in the Air Force several years longer than I had, and he was a senior officer to me. I was junior to him. And I will tell you, I was nothing but impressed with Neil about how he approached that requalification session with me. The problem you have in the military, in life, anywhere, is that you'll run into some guys that, and gals, I've seen that a lot, they'll have egos and you can't really help them because they have this wall up, they won't admit they're doing something wrong. They're like, well, I'm doing it just fine. I'm like, no, you aren't. You're not. You suck. Admit you suck so we can make some progress. Once you admit you suck, then we can make progress. Then we can really be honest with each other, and then we can start progressing and doing these touch and goes and saying, yeah, that was good. Try this next time. You flared too high. Pull your power a little bit earlier. Here's your fuel flows you want to set. You know, look at your N1s on the gauges. These are techniques I use. Try that. He does another touch and go. Boom. That was better. And we were doing this in an operational, real-world environment over in England. And I'll tell you what, that spring, we're over there in springtime in 1998, horrible weather. I mean, every time we landed at Lakenheath, sometimes Mildenhall, we had a crosswind. Sometimes 20 knots, crosswind, driving rain on a pretty short runway. Ask the Mildenhalls, the Egan guys over there, EGUN, that's their identifier. They'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just how it is over there. I eat it up. I'm a crosswind guy. Eat it up. Love it. But I was impressed how Neil approached it because he's very humble. And at first when we started flying together, he sucked. I remember we did a 6-ship off of Bangor, Maine. We're towing A-10s. Speaking of A-10s, we did a fighter drag. That's what it's called. When we hauled the fighters over from the east coast of the U.S. all the way over to Europe. They don't have a gas to do it themselves, so they're paired with tankers. In this instance, it was a 6-ship. Holy crap. It's a lot of jets to manage. And we were lead. And Neil was acting as aircraft commander, and he sucked. He wasn't making decisions. The whole thing was falling apart. I had to take over. And the reason I know all these details, you guys will dig this, I keep great records. These are my logbooks from all the sorties I flew. All my logbooks. Has all the details in them. So yeah, I can recreate all the sorties. So on that particular mission, it was like, oh, dude, this sucks. And so I took over and tried to rescue it. Because it's operational. It's not a training mission. It's got to go. We have people relying on us. Those A-10s are relying on us. But I'll tell you what, I debriefed them very honestly, and we sat down after the end of the mission. We're over in England at the time. I was like, this didn't go well. This did not go well. You need to do this better. You need to be more proactive. You need to look at the things that can happen. You need to get your OUTRAV ready. That's a airspace reservation with international airspace. And he listened. He was humble. And then we managed those crosswinds in England. He sucked at those. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy cannot land in a crosswind. But he listened. And he admitted it. And he was like, okay, how can I be better? And I told him, I was like, here we go. Let's do another one. And he got better. He got good. In fact, the old Neil came out again because I knew he had been a good pilot before, and his confidence level slowly came back. And that's very important as a pilot. It's that balance. You don't want to be a cock, but you got to be confident. You got to know that you can do the job. It's like that in life, that you've got to have that confidence. You've got to believe in yourself that you can attack this. And that was my job as the instructor pilot to Neil on that ETTF, that deployment. We were together for, I think, 45 days, just under. And by the end of those 45 days, dude was squared away. And we were fist bumping like, yeah! I mean, he landed, like, nailed this 25-knot rainy landing in Mildenhall, and I didn't touch it. I didn't give him any input, didn't do anything. I was like, dude, you are back. You are back. And to this day, that is such a bonding experience between us as friends, because he's like, wow, man, you know, I'm so grateful for your instruction. You're such a good IP, and give me all that stuff. I was like, I don't know about that, but thank you for listening. You know, and because you're so honest, it helps you improve. Be a quiet professional, and to this day, Neil's a quiet professional. And by the way, he's there at the Utah Air National Guard. Yeah, buddy, Neil. So much fun. And also, you gotta admit fault. And like I was telling you about Neil, there's another part of being a quiet professional. And I'll tell you what, I dicked up a lot in the Air Force. Everybody dicks up. Everybody screws up. You plan to do it this way, you plan to do it that way, and you screw up. When it's really bad, you die. Sorry, you just do. You die. When it was screw up, kind of like that IP I told you about in Beale Air Force Base, he screwed up. He forgot he had his gear hanging. That was his biggest drag item. If he would just raise his gear and done a 45-degree bank, he'd be alive to this day. But in the heat of the battle with Tower yelling at him, he screwed up. Great pilot, great guy. It's just a moment of weakness, and all of us can experience bad luck like that. One of the things that you should do to prepare yourself not to fall into that trap is to admit fault. When you screw up, admit fault. And I've covered this principle before in my other philosophy videos. Live to impress yourself. Workers are few. The concept of work. You admit fault. You screwed up. You're a commanding officer. You say, you know what? I'm sorry. I meant to do it this way. I didn't. Be honest. Be honest. Here's one I screwed up on. I'll take you back to England. I'm at Egan again. That is Mildenhall. You know, and, you know, I was pretty confident aircraft commander. My crew is very confident in me, and sometimes that's a bad thing because they're not really watching you. Because they're like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. Hey, man, what's in the paper today? You know, the NAV's back there reading a paper on a long story or whatever during transition, during a landing. I don't care, whatever. But we're taxiing in Mildenhall, looking at the diagram. The guy says, hey, go over here. And I'm like, taxiing the KC-135. We just landed from sortie. And I missed my turnoff. I'm like, what? I think I should have turned left there, and now I'm stuck. Like, not way stuck, but bad. I'm like right in front of the building where everybody mission plans. So all my buddies in the squadron on that deployment are in their mission plan. It's like in the afternoon, because we launched early that morning, like 5 in the morning. We landed around 1 p.m. And so they're all the evening sorties are mission planned. They're all in there. And there's only one way for me to get out of this thing. And I tell grounds like, I'm sorry, we missed our turn off. And my crew's suddenly paying attention, like, oh, dude, you should turn left there. I'm like, I know. Now I'm on the C5 ramp where Tower Air and C5s used to park. You guys who know Mildenhall know what I'm talking about. And there's only one way. And there's a C5 parked there. Huge. C5 Galaxy. So they're taking a motion to the ramp. And I'm looking at my wingspan. I'm like, I really don't want to get towed out of this. And I'm measuring. I'm like, yeah, I have enough room to do a 180, but barely. So I like get approval from ground. They're like, yeah, good luck. That's what he said. Good luck. And I was like, I had a lot of experience really cranking this 135 on a dime. From Suda Bay, they're very narrow runway. That's another funny story. So I like favored the left side of the ramp, and I'm like pushing up the throttles. My crew's like, what the? And then everybody comes out from the TTF mission planning office. They're like, what are you doing here? They knew that wasn't a place that we were approved to taxi on. So I had to do a 180 right in front of them. It was tight. Totally made it. Didn't hurt anything. Didn't bend any metal. But it was so tight I had to push my motors up to make that 180-degree turn. I was like, oh, I really got to reef these motors. So I'm like, the motor's like, those guys are standing behind my engines. They all run in the building. The windows were open. And so now I have my tail cones from the 135 pointed right at the open windows of this long rectangular building where all their chairs are set up. And my jet exhaust is like going, throwing all their papers around. Just decimating the place. I finally taxi out. I take the right turn. I'm taxiing past TTF. And they're all out there. They're like, duck face clap. Duck face golf clap. It was awesome. Yeah, I screwed up. I didn't hurt anything, but it was very embarrassing at the time. Very embarrassing. And it was actually a lesson learned to me of, yeah, you're tired. You flew a long mission. You didn't get much sleep last night. Standard. Pay attention. And if you don't feel like your crew's paying attention, have them back you up. Say, hey guys, I'm tired. Please watch me. You know, swallow the ego. Do the right thing. And that was humbling. I had several experiences like that. Here's one I had just like that, and it was early in my Air Force career when I was flying, again, this plane right here. Actually, it wasn't the white T, it was a white T-38 because this happened in pilot training. As you get better and, you know, as you graduate in each phase of undergraduate pilot training, you'll go to your solo phases, and there's a lot of training you have to do. So they're like, you know what, this guy's good enough, we're going to cut him loose, he's alone. And man, was that cool, by the way. Getting cut loose for the first time in the supersonic T-38. It was a dream come true because I'd always visualized it in my mind. Got the G-suit on, got this wicked helmet on. Nobody to babysit me. I have this multi-million-dollar jet to go out and tear up the sky with, and man, did it rock. And it was one of those days. They're like, yeah, Lieutenant Nutnfancy, you're going out in the T-38 today alone. Have fun. Here's your agenda. This is what we want you to practice because you'll be tested on all these procedures, so it's a great opportunity. Don't waste the gas. Have fun. Be safe. Strap on my G-suit, take my chute out. I go out to the area, just tearing it up. Afterburner, going vertical, flying upside down, doing like 100 aileron rolls, barrel rolls, trying to stay in the area, you know, pie in the sky. That's a whole thing on the tack hand we had to do. What a pain in the butt that was. Great sortie, man. Tearing it up. I report the checkpoint, come back in, do some really sweet close patterns. Not too aggressive because you get in trouble for that as a student. Come back, I land. I'm like, man, that was a good sortie. Park the T-38, run my shutdown checklist. I step out. I never fastened my parachute straps to myself. Whoa. If I would have ejected, I would have died. Nope, I had my chest strapped, but I was in such a hurry, so excited for the flight, that my leg straps never attached. Wow. Yeah, not so cool. Not so cool. Yeah, it was humbling. Everybody gets humbled, so you learn from them, you press on. Be a quiet professional. Swallow your ego, do the right thing. And sometimes be a not-so-quiet professional. And as you get rank and position in the military, you may have to speak up for those things that are right. You know, some things that just are incorrect. And I always approached it, maybe because my dad died in an aircraft mishap. It was our private plane, 1980s or whatever, but I always approached it from a safety perspective. That as I was calling people, like I was flying around with Mary that night, I'm flying around with Neil, those rainy and windy nights, I'm saying, can I trust this guy to get the job done when the chips are down, when he's getting shot at, when he's under a stressful environment, when there's some surface-to-air missiles firing at him, when the weather is horrible, when he's tired, when he's landing in, you know, Suda Bay, Crete, unfamiliar field. Is he going to go off the runway? Is he going to crash the plane? Is he going to just lose it? Is he going to lock up like that Terminator dude did? That's what I ask. I approach it from a safety perspective. And if the answer is no, then I say no. I don't care where the chips fall. And I was known for that too. Ask any of my squadron buddies, they will tell you that. It was a couple years back, and the guard unit, they're like, hey man, we want to make this person instructor pilot. All in favor? Thoughts on it. They didn't say all in favor. They're like, thoughts on it? I sit back there and I raise my hand. They're like, yeah. Lieutenant Colonel Nutnfancy, what do you say? Might have been a major back then, don't know. I pull out my daybook and I'm looking like, yeah, I had an update. Let's see, I had a date here set aside when that person could be an instructor pilot. Let's hear. Oh, here it is. How about never? Everybody started laughing. This is just a room full of instructor pilots, so the person we're talking about wasn't there. Because I felt like that person, one, wasn't really wanting it, and if you don't want it, you're not going to be good at the job. And also, I thought that person would be a danger. A danger in that job. So, I don't believe in being an administrative IP. I don't. And that's another weird thing that happens in the Air Force, is that, hey, you did really good in your paper pushing job, and your extra, your extra additional duty. You're a great snacko, you're a great, wing executive guy. We're going to send you to IP school now. Instructor pilot school, IP, I'm jargoning again. Yeah, that way you have that on your your records, and so you can advance, you'll get ranked better, because it's all about rank. So I'm a weapon system operator, a MWS KC-135. To get this, okay, where's my rank? Can't even see it, right here. To get that, you need to have shown very good progression in your MWS. It's that way in the Navy, it's that way in any military. Hey, you know what? The guy's a great guy, but he sucks at his job. He doesn't know how to drive his M1 Abrams. He doesn't know how to drive his jet. We can't promote someone like that, which is correct. You wouldn't want to promote someone like that. So the weird thing you got going in the Air Force is, well, they really suck at flying. They're not a good pilot, but we're going to pretend they're a good pilot. That way they can stamp. They can get that IP stamp, the aircraft commander stamp, the wing lead stamp. And on they go, and this is nothing new. It's been happening in the military ever since, I don't know, the Roman times. Do you remember Lieutenant Dyke in Band of Brothers, that idiot, as they were attacking Foy? He totally lost it, got all those guys killed. Yeah, there's Lieutenant Dykes out there. Where's Dyke? When you really need him, when the chips are down, where's that guy? We're getting shot at here. We need some leadership. Where's this guy? We got a 25-knot crosswind landing, nowhere to be seen. He's hiding in the back by the galley. Hey, you guys take it. I'm good. No, you're not good. You're terrified and you suck. My gosh. Stand up. Make the call. So when you get into a position of power, or I don't know if power, influence is a better word, make the right call. And I worked that as hard as I possibly could. And this will lead into my next point. Here we are, 35 minutes in. And I really don't know how to say this next theme. I'm just going to say it because it's just so self-explanatory. Don't be a chicken shit. Yes, this is a family show. Sorry. But it just explains it so well. A CS. Don't be a chicken shit. God, I can't tell you how much I disdain chicken shit people. Ooh, it just infuriates me. Okay, my job is not putting rounds on target. My job isn't dropping a Mark 82. Rocket-assisted party favor. My job is gassing guys. Fuel and flight, which, by the way, there's no kicking ass without tanker gas, thank you very much. Everything you see going on in theater, talking over in Afghanistan, Iraq, it don't happen without the KC-135 or the KC-10s. They just don't. They don't have the legs. You have to have fueling resources available. And that's one thing that makes United States air power so incredible, is that we have an incredible air refueling resource in the 135. It's mostly the 135 does line share that way. So my job as a warrior in the 135 is to get it done. No matter if it's hard, no matter if I'm tired, no matter if I'm getting shot at, no matter if I'm over enemy territory, here comes another story. I deployed in 1999 for the Kosovo Air War. It was a NATO intervention in what the Serbians were doing, and again, out of my hands. I'm not a political decider on this. I have opinions on what we did and how we did it, but I'm an Air Force pilot. My job is to go do my job. And actually, I didn't really have any issues with what we're doing now. I thought it was mostly good. The weird thing is I was deployed from England again. I told you guys I lived in England a lot. I was there for a long time on this engagement, like 80 days or something. Long time for me. And really billeted in an awesome place, by the way. When the war kicked off, we were in Riverside Hotel in Mildenhall Village, England. Carolyn and Simon were the curators of that hotel. We got to know them very well. Awesome people. So yeah, I was in some pretty posh billeting. I'm not complaining about that. And actually it housed B-17 aircrew at the same time. But what we were doing there, not the same time, but in World War II, what we're doing there is dragging fighter resources into theater on very long sorties, at least for me, in total about 8 hours in duration. And we drag them down in theater. That was our job. and we'd pick up some, maybe drag them back if we had the gas. We'd stay in theater. And we were actually over some pretty scary areas. In fact, we were flying completely sanitized. That is, you take your ID card out, you take all the patches off, you'd have your rank on, that's it, name, rank, and serial number. So if you're shot down, if you're captured, that's all you have on your person. That's when I had my really cool Air Force survival kit that I made. I may cover that with you guys sometime. And, you know, you're flying with sidearm, you're flying armed. It's serious stuff, you know. And their station is, I won't go into details, but well within the range of surface-to-air missiles. I'll just say that. Why? Because if we're further away, the fighter guys who are dropping ordnance and trying to save lives down there with what they're doing couldn't reach us. If we're like too far away, they didn't have the gas. We had to be kind of close. Yeah, it sucks. So we're on one of these sorties. We go down there. And I just reviewed this in my logbook to remember all the circumstances. Pitch black, because most of the bombing was going on at night. And we were paired with some Strike Eagles going down. The Strike Eagle is an air-to-ground asset, mostly. It also has an air-to-air mission, but their main job is to drop ordnance very accurately, I might add. They have an incredible payload capability, and that's their job. And so we drug F-15s down, and they were going to attach to other KCs in theater for the job back. And they had come to us, they dropped some bombs, we refueled them, and I'm looking at my gas state. I already know the numbers I need to get back to England. I'm like, okay, we're kind of getting to what we call bingo. In other words, we need to get back. Tell the crew this, and the whole time I'm listening to the strike frequency. We have an airborne asset that's controlling the order of battle. We're listening to that guy. We're listening to what the F-16s, F-15 guys are doing. And suddenly I switched to another freak because we're looking on our information there. And I switched to another battle freak that I knew there would be some action on because I knew what they were after, what the job of these particular air assets were, and I was interested to see how it was progressing. I get on the frequency and I hear this very excited talk. It's like, yeah, can we go? You know, we got to go get them. We have like a 5-minute window. And they're trying to get approval from the airborne command post. Like, can we do it? So it runs all the way up the chain. It turns out there's an Mi-24 Hind attacking refugees. Okay, these refugees are trying to flee, and there's a Hind helicopter, a big old Hind helicopter, going down and strafing them with its gun. There's 2 F-16 CJs watching this through their FLIR pod. And they're on station. They're an airborne standby asset ready to go, and they have to get approvals. This is what we're seeing. Are you seeing the same thing? They had some RPVs in the area. They could bring all this information together. The command and control goes up. It's never willy-nilly. It's always a very serious decision. You know, how do we do this? How do we not injure civilians on the ground? It's a very serious thing. Command and control comes down and says, whack it. CJs go booking it. Funny thing happens when you're a pilot and you're excited, which we all get sometimes. Those 2 CJ guys went into it full afterburner. And they actually extracted full afterburner because they're in some Indian territory. In other words, there are a lot of surface-to-air threats there. They knew for a fact. They go in, they just shred this guy. I forget whether they knocked him out with the gun runs or whatever, but they just shred this Mi-24. Blow him up. They come off target. They're real excited. And we're listening to this on frequency, and then we hear them say, oh, crap, because they weren't watching their gas state. They were so focused on getting this guy that they stayed past their loiter time, and then they had used afterburner liberally. They came off emergency fuel. It's a big deal. Because they're over enemy territory, that was enemy-held territory at the time, and both of these guys, a 2-ship, probably wasn't even going to make Aviano. Wherever the heck they were diverting, I forget. And that's where we came in. And I'm listening to this. I jump on with airborne asset, and I say, hey, listen, we're on station. We're almost bingo fuel, but we got a lot. We can go get these guys if you want. Pause. They check. They're like, you're in. I'd already consulted with my crew. I was like, hey guys, are you guys up for getting these guys? Listen to all the inputs. There wasn't anybody in my crew that said no. They're like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, okay, we're going to do it. One, we're going to have less fuel. We probably won't make it back to England. We didn't. And also, we're really close to some surface-to-air threats. We could be shot down. Nobody in the crew cared. They're like, let's go get them. Boom! Punch the throttles up, max thrust. We're doing like 340 knots to these guys. These guys were on fumes when we got them, these 2 CJs. We go down low altitude because we didn't want them to climb up. That's how little gas they have. So we're over, I don't know, probably 4,000 feet above the terrain. We hook up with these 2 CJs, the F-16s. Come on the boom. Guy's hooked up. He's just hyperventilating. He's like, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how glad I am to see you guys. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like all excited because they shot that hind, and he's just so grateful we got to him. He's like, we were getting ready. They're looking at ejection options. They're like, okay, how do we eject? You know, how far can we go? Glide ratios. They're actually exiting territory. We actually met each other. If they were like boogieing out. Refuel those guys. There's another tanker in the area that had actually been assigned that job, and he bugged out. Yeah, I don't know who it was. There's no one I knew. It was another KC-135 from another area. And we know because we had it on our sheet. We could say, yeah, this guy, that's his job to be the standby tanker. And, you know, the dude, the airborne asset actually said, hey, you know, you guys are actually closer. You want to get? And they're like, oh, actually, we need to go back to base. We're low fuel. We knew for a fact he had more fuel than us. Don't be a chicken shit, man. That's all I'm saying, man. There will be opportunities when you will have to charge a machine gun post. You will have to step up and do the job, and lives may be on the line. And more importantly, you have to live with yourself. By the way, that happened 15 April 1999. It was an 8.4 hour sortie. Yeah. So good. You have to live with yourself. Do the right thing. You know, your military career doesn't last forever, and you want to be able to say, I stepped up when I had to step up. And not all of them will be that dramatic. I'm telling you, it's, you know, not all of them will be that way, but maybe once in a while it will be. Where's Dyke? Gosh, that's funny. Kind of funny, not really, when you have a leader that can't lead. I'm out of time already. Into part 2, Air Force Stories. This is Lieutenant Colonel Nutnfancy, U.S. Air Force retired. Come back to part 3.